When your wife says she's going to a florist conference in Miami and comes back with a tan in the shape of men's hands on her back, you realize something isn't right here. My name is Hank, I'm 42 years old, and for the last 15 years I thought I knew my wife Jennifer better than anyone else in this world. I'm a stuntman. I jump off roofs, set myself on fire, crash cars for the movies. I risk my life every single day. But the biggest hit I ever took wasn't on a film set, it was at home in our apartment in Scottsdale. Jennifer had always been a quiet, calm woman. Her flower shop brought in steady income, we lived modestly but comfortably. We didn't have children. She said she wasn't ready, I didn't push. We were a team. At least that's what I thought. Everything started 6 months ago. Jennifer suddenly got into yoga, started meeting more often with her best friend Michelle. I was happy she found new interests. Then these trips to Miami appeared. First one, a month later another, then a third. Orchid suppliers, new tropical plant collection, floral design seminar, there was always a reason. I didn't suspect anything. Stuntmen are used to trusting their partners. It's a matter of survival. So I trusted her unconditionally. And then Marcus called me. My friend from college who happens to live in Miami. Hank, I need to talk to you. In person. His voice was tense. I flew out the next day. What he told me turned my world upside down. Marcus had accidentally seen Jennifer at a restaurant on Ocean Drive. She wasn't alone. There was a man with her and they were behaving, not like business partners. Marcus didn't want to interfere, but when he saw them for the third time in 2 months, he realized he had to tell me. Who is he? I asked, trying to stay calm. I don't know. Looks successful. Suit, expensive watch. They were staying at a hotel on Betrayal Avenue. I felt the ground disappear from under my feet. But stuntmen don't panic, we act. Marcus, I know I'm asking a lot, but can you follow them next time? I need facts. He agreed. 2 weeks of waiting were hell. I'd come home, watch Jennifer cooking dinner, telling me about new bouquets, and I couldn't believe this woman was cheating on me. Then Marcus sent photos. Jennifer and a stranger by the hotel pool. Their hands intertwined. A kiss on the beach. Them entering a room. Each photo was a knife to the heart, but I couldn't stop. I needed to know everything. Marcus did more, he found out who this man was. Howard Eaton, cardiologist from Phoenix. 48 years old, divorced, no children. And the most painful detail, he was Michelle's husband, Jennifer's best friend. They had divorced a year ago. Now everything fell into place. Michelle wasn't support for Jennifer, she was cover. Maybe even a matchmaker for her ex-husband. The realization hit me like a failed stunt. All those evenings when Jennifer said she was with Michelle, all those girls' nights and shopping trips, how many of them were lies? How long had this been going on? The trips to Miami were just the visible part. What about all those times she said she was working late at the flower shop? What about the weekends when she claimed she needed to attend workshops in Phoenix? I started remembering small details I had ignored. That new perfume she bought 6 months ago. The gym membership she suddenly wanted. The way she started keeping her phone face down on the table. The password she added to her laptop, for security reasons. All those little red flags I had dismissed because I trusted her. I felt like an idiot. Here I was, a professional stuntman who calculated every risk, every angle, every possible outcome before jumping, and I had completely missed the signs of my own wife's betrayal. I had been performing the most dangerous stunts in Hollywood while my personal life was the real disaster waiting to happen. But I couldn't confront her yet. Not without a plan. In my line of work, rushing into a stunt without preparation gets you killed. The same principle applied here. I needed to be smart, calculated, and several steps ahead. I could have staged a scene. Could have screamed, broken things. But I chose a different path. Cold, calculated, professional. Like executing a complex stunt, every step had to be precise. First, I quietly transferred all our savings into cryptocurrency on a cold wallet that only I knew about. This was about $80,000, money I earned risking my life. I made sure everything looked legally clean. These were my fees, my accounts. The beauty of being a freelance stuntman was that my income came in chunks, and I had legitimate reasons to move money around for equipment investments and training expenses. I documented everything. Every transfer, every reason. I kept spreadsheets showing which stunts paid for what savings. I wanted no legal ambiguity. This money was earned with my broken bones, my burns, my concussions. Every dollar represented a risk I took while she was probably texting Howard. Then I found a lawyer. The best in Arizona. I showed him all the evidence Marcus had collected. Photos, dates of trips, hotel receipts I pulled from her email. The lawyer smiled. In your state, infidelity can affect property division. You did everything right. But we needed more. The lawyer explained that while we had proof of the affair, we needed to establish a pattern. We needed to show that Jennifer had been deliberately deceptive, that she had used marital funds for her affair, that she had lied systematically. The more evidence, the stronger your position, he said. So I dug deeper. I checked our credit card statements going back a year. There they were, charges at expensive restaurants in Phoenix when she said she was doing inventory at the shop. Hotel stays in Sedona when she claimed she was at floral conventions. Lingerie purchases I never saw her wear. The paper trail was damning. I hired a forensic accountant to track every penny. Turns out Jennifer had been spending our joint account money on her affair for over 8 months. Dinners, hotels, gifts. She had spent nearly $12,000 of our savings on her relationship with Howard. Money we were supposedly saving for our future. The accountant created a detailed report. Every expense, every lie, every dollar she stole from our marriage. It was methodical, professional, and absolutely devastating. This wasn't just infidelity, this was financial betrayal too. I asked Marcus for one more favor. Next time they're together, I need video. Not just photos. I need her voice, her words, proof she's actively participating in this. Marcus felt uncomfortable, but he understood why I needed it. A week later, Jennifer announced another trip to Miami. Big supplier meeting, she said, kissing me goodbye. I'll be back in 3 days. Marcus followed them to a beachfront restaurant. He sat far enough away not to be noticed but close enough to record audio on his phone. He sent me the file that night. I listened to my wife laugh with another man. Heard her call him baby. Heard her complain about how I was always away on film sets, and how she felt so alone. Heard Howard promise to take care of her, if she left me. Heard her say she was working on it, but needed to figure out the finances first. That last part made my blood run cold. She wasn't just having an affair, she was planning to leave me and take as much as she could. She was calculating, strategizing. While I was planning to expose her, she was planning to rob me. I played that recording for my lawyer. He leaned back in his chair and whistled. This changes everything. She's planning to defraud you. We can use this. We revised our strategy. Instead of just filing for divorce, we would file with a claim of fraudulent dissipation of marital assets. We would seek full recovery of everything she spent on the affair, plus compensation. We would make sure she got nothing. But I still waited. Timing was everything. I needed to move at the exact right moment, when she was most vulnerable, most exposed, most confident in her deception. I waited until her next trip to Miami. Jennifer packed her suitcase, kissed me goodbye, promised to bring back something delicious. I love you, she said. Love you too, I replied. Last time. While she was in Miami with Howard, I acted. Filed for divorce, transferred the apartment to my name through an old legal document we signed at purchase. She hadn't read it carefully then, trusting me with everything. Technically I was the sole owner. Packed all her things into boxes. Changed the locks. I also did something else. I called the owner of Jennifer's flower shop, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson who had sold Jennifer the business 5 years ago but still owned the building. I showed her evidence of what Jennifer had been doing, using the shop as cover for her affair, lying about business trips, potentially using business hours for personal matters. Mrs. Patterson was old-fashioned and deeply religious. She was horrified. I trusted her with my life's work, she said, tears in her eyes. My late husband and I built that shop together. I felt bad for her, but I needed her to understand. I thought you should know what's really been happening. Mrs. Patterson made a decision. She invoked a morality clause in their lease agreement, something from the 1950s that technically was still valid. Jennifer's lease would not be renewed. She had 3 months to vacate. I didn't force Mrs. Patterson to do anything. I just gave her information. What she did with it was her choice. But it meant Jennifer would lose not just me, not just our home, but also her business location. She'd have to find a new space, renegotiate with suppliers, rebuild her customer base. It would cost her everything she'd worked for. When Jennifer returned, an envelope with divorce papers and the address of a storage facility where her things were waiting greeted her at the door. The documents clearly stated, due to proven infidelity and fraud regarding the purpose of trips paid from our joint budget, she had no rights to property. The apartment, the car, everything, remained mine. She called hundreds of times. Cried, begged, swore she'd end everything with Howard. But I didn't answer anymore. I just forwarded everything to my lawyer. She tried to get to me through mutual friends. She showed up at film sets where I was working. Security escorted her away. She sent letters, emails, text messages. I blocked everything. One message got through though, from a number I didn't recognize. It was from Howard. "You're destroying an innocent woman over one mistake," he wrote. "She loves you but was lonely. Be a man and forgive her." I almost laughed. This man had been sleeping with my wife for months, spending my money, planning a future with her, and now he was lecturing me about being a man? I forwarded the message to my lawyer. "Can we use this?" I asked. "Absolutely," he replied. "This shows ongoing interference in your marriage. We can add it to the case." The court proceedings moved faster than I expected. Jennifer's lawyer tried to argue that she deserved half of everything, that the affair was a temporary lapse in judgment, that she had contributed to our life together. My lawyer presented the evidence systematically: the photos, the videos, the audio recordings, the financial records, the hotel receipts, Howard's text message, everything. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Jennifer with undisguised disgust. "You systematically deceived your husband, spent marital funds on an extramarital affair, and planned to defraud him further. This court sees no reason to reward such behavior." Jennifer's lawyer tried to object, but the judge cut her off. "Your client made her choices. She must live with the consequences." The final judgment was brutal. I got the apartment, the car, all savings, and Jennifer was ordered to repay the $12,000 she had spent on her affair. She had 30 days to pay or face wage garnishment. She got only what was personally hers, her clothes, personal items, and whatever she could salvage from her flower shop before the lease expired. But the real punishment wasn't financial. It was social. In a city like Scottsdale, word travels fast. Jennifer's betrayal became local gossip. Clients stopped coming to her flower shop. Wedding planners dropped her from their vendor lists. Nobody wanted to hire a florist known for deception and infidelity. If she couldn't be faithful to her husband, how could they trust her with their special events? Michelle, the supposed best friend who had facilitated this whole mess, also faced consequences. Mutual friends cut her off. She had betrayed not just me but the entire concept of friendship. She became a pariah in our social circle. And Howard? The irony of fate. He didn't want to continue their relationship after the divorce. Turns out their affair was just entertainment for him, a way to have fun after his own divorce. When things got serious, he disappeared. He blocked Jennifer's calls, changed his number, even switched hospitals to avoid her. Jennifer lost everything: Amy, the home, her lover, even her friendship with Michelle, who apparently hadn't expected such consequences either. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Michelle blamed Jennifer for making it too obvious and dragging her into the mess. I sold the apartment 3 months after the final divorce. Got $250,000 cash for it. Together with the savings and cryptocurrency, I had more than $330,000. And then I did what I had dreamed about my entire adult life. A round-the-world trip. Jennifer had always said, "Not now, let's postpone, we need to save money." Now I understood. She was keeping me close while enjoying freedom with her lover. But now I was free. All my belongings fit in an old but reliable SUV. I loaded maps, packed camping equipment, took a camera. Said goodbye to Marcus, thanking him for the truth that, though painful, had set me free. Before I left, I did one final thing. I wrote a letter to Jennifer. Not out of anger but out of closure. I needed her to understand what she had lost, not for revenge but for my own peace. "Jennifer," I wrote, "by the time you read this I'll be gone. Not just from Scottsdale but from the life we built together. You made your choices and I made mine. You chose Howard, lies and temporary excitement. I chose truth, self-respect and freedom. You thought you could have everything, a stable husband at home and an exciting lover on the side. Instead you lost both. Howard didn't want you when things got real. And I don't want you now that I know who you really are. You asked me once why I never took that round-the-world trip I always talked about. The truth? I was staying for you. I thought we were building something together. Now I realize you were my anchor, not in a good way. You were holding me down while I thought you were holding me steady. I'm cutting that anchor loose. I'm going to see the world, meet new people, experience life without the weight of your betrayal. What happens to you now? I honestly don't care. You made your bed. Sleep in it. Don't contact me. Don't try to find me. We're done. Forever. Hank." I left the letter with my lawyer to give her after I was gone. I didn't want a response. I didn't want closure from her. I wanted to close this chapter myself on my own terms. First stop, California. Then Oregon, Washington, Canada. I'm planning to drive through Alaska, ferry to Asia, travel through Europe. See the world not through a hotel window but for real. Sleep under the stars, watch sunrises in the mountains, dive in the ocean. What happened to Jennifer after? I don't care anymore. I heard she sold her flower shop for a fraction of what it was worth and moved to another city. Maybe looking for a new life. Maybe regretting. But those aren't my problems anymore. I spent 15 years building a life with someone who didn't value me. Now I have the opportunity to live the rest of my life for myself. Every mile on the road is a step toward freedom. Every new country is a reminder that the world is huge and I can finally see it. Stuntmen know, the scariest jump is the one you don't take because of fear. I'm not afraid anymore. I jumped into a new life, and the flight turned out to be the best stunt I've ever performed. 6 months into my journey, I'm writing this from a campsite in the Canadian Rockies. The stars above me are clearer than anything I've ever seen in Scottsdale. Tomorrow I'm heading to Banff, then Jasper, then up toward Alaska. I've met incredible people on this journey. Other travelers, locals who shared their stories, fellow adventurers who understood the need to escape and explore. Nobody here knows about Jennifer, about Howard, about the betrayal. I'm just Hank, the American stuntman seeing the world. And you know what? I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Not the comfortable happiness of routine, but the wild happiness of freedom. Every morning I wake up not knowing exactly what the day will bring. Every evening I fall asleep exhausted from new experiences, not from the weight of lies. I think about Jennifer sometimes, usually when I'm doing something particularly beautiful, watching a sunset, hiking a mountain trail, meeting someone interesting. I think about how she could have been here with me, how this could have been our adventure. But then I remember, she chose differently. She chose hotel rooms in Miami over sunrises in the mountains. She chose lies over truth. She chose Howard, who didn't even want her in the end. Her loss. My gain. The money from the apartment and savings? It's funding the adventure of a lifetime. I budget carefully, stay in campgrounds more than hotels, cook my own meals. But I'm not suffering, I'm thriving. This isn't poverty, it's freedom. I've started documenting my journey. Not for social media, not for validation, but for myself. Photos, journal entries, videos of places I visit. Maybe one day I'll turn it into something, maybe not. Right now it's just for me. Sometimes fellow travelers ask about my story. What made you take this trip? They ask. I usually say something simple. Always wanted to, finally had the chance. But a few people, the ones who really connect, they see through it. They see the fresh wound, the healing scar. They recognize a fellow escapee. One guy, a German named Klaus who was traveling after his own divorce, told me, the best revenge is living well. He was right. Jennifer tried to take everything from me. Instead, she gave me permission to take everything for myself. All the dreams I'd postponed, all the adventures I'd delayed, all the life I'd put on hold. I don't know where I'll end up. Maybe I'll fall in love with a place and settle down. Maybe I'll keep moving forever. Maybe I'll eventually return to stunt work, bringing fresh perspective from my travels. The beauty is I don't have to decide right now. I have time, money, and freedom. As I sit here under these Canadian stars, I realize something. Jennifer didn't break me. She freed me. Not intentionally, of course. She tried to break me, tried to take everything. But in doing so, she cut the chains I didn't even know I was wearing. The chain of routine, of false security, of a life half-lived. I'm 42 years old. Young enough to start over, old enough to appreciate what I have. This isn't a midlife crisis. This is a midlife awakening. Tomorrow I drive north. After that, who knows? The world is big and I'm finally small enough to fit through its doors. Jennifer wanted an adventure. She found it in hotel rooms and lies. I found mine in truth and open roads. Guess we both got what we were looking for. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't end when you discover it. It echoes through every memory you have, recoloring the past with new understanding. As I drove through British Columbia, crossing into Yukon territory, I found myself replaying 15 years of marriage in my head, seeing things I'd missed. That anniversary 3 years ago when Jennifer seemed distracted during dinner. I thought she was worried about the flower shop. Now I wondered if she was already thinking about someone else. That time she insisted on going to Phoenix alone for a vendor meeting, and came back unusually cheerful. Had that been Howard too? The truth is, I'll never know the full extent of her betrayal. I know about Howard, about Miami, about the 8 months of documented lies. But what about before? What about all those times I couldn't account for? The uncertainty is almost worse than the knowledge. But I'm learning to let it go. Every mile I drive, every new place I see, I'm leaving that uncertainty behind. I'm not running from my past, I'm driving toward my future. In Whitehorse I met a woman named Sarah. She was a wildlife photographer from Australia, traveling solo in a beaten-up van even older than my SUV. We shared a campsite, traded stories over a fire. She told me about her own divorce 5 years ago, how her husband had left her for a colleague. "Did you ever get over it?" I asked. She thought about it for a moment, watching the flames. "You don't get over it. You get through it. And then, one day you realize you're not thinking about them anymore. You're thinking about the mountain you want to climb, or the photograph you want to take, or the sunset you're watching. They become background noise instead of the main soundtrack." That conversation stayed with me. Jennifer had been my main soundtrack for 15 years. Every decision I made, every plan I had, involved her. Even my dreams were filtered through what she wanted or didn't want. Now I was learning to listen to my own music. Sarah and I ended up traveling together for 2 weeks. Nothing romantic, we were both too raw for that, but companionship, understanding. She taught me about wildlife photography, and I taught her some basic stunt techniques for getting unusual angles. We laughed more in those 2 weeks than I had in the last year of my marriage. When we parted ways in Alaska, she was heading to Denali, I was going to Nome. She gave me advice that hit harder than I expected. "Don't let her steal your ability to trust again," she said. "She betrayed you. That's on her. But if you let that betrayal close you off from ever trusting anyone again, then she's still controlling your life. The real revenge is living fully, loving fully, trusting again." I thought about that a lot as I drove to Nome. Was I closing myself off? Probably. The walls I'd built around my heart since discovering Jennifer's affair were thick and high. But Sarah was right. Those walls weren't protecting me from Jennifer. They were protecting me from life. In Nome, I stood at the edge of America looking out at the Bering Sea. This was as far west as I could go on this continent. Beyond this was water, then Russia, then the whole rest of the world. I'd come so far already, but the journey was just beginning. I pulled out my phone for the first time in weeks. No service, but I'd saved some messages before I'd left civilization. There was one from my stunt coordinator, Jake, asking if I wanted to come back for a big Marvel movie shoot. Good money, great stunts. The old me would have jumped at it. But the new me? I typed out a response to send when I got back to signal range. Not yet. Maybe next year. Still traveling. There was also a message from Marcus. He'd become my anchor to the old world, the only person who knew my full story and where I was. "Heard through the grapevine that Jennifer's struggling," he wrote. "Shop closed, she's working retail now. Michelle apparently won't talk to her. Howard got engaged to someone else. Thought you'd want to know. Not for gloating, just for closure." I sat with that information for a while. Did I feel satisfaction? A little. Did I feel pity? Maybe. But mostly I felt nothing. Jennifer had become a character in a story I used to live, not someone who could hurt me anymore. I typed back, "Thanks for letting me know. I'm good. Really good. Tell you about it when I see you next year." Because that was the truth. I was good. Better than good. I was free. From Nome, I took a ferry back to the continental US, then started working my way down through Alaska again, taking routes I'd missed the first time. In a small town called Talkeetna, I met a group of climbers preparing to summit Denali. They invited me to join them for dinner, and we ended up talking until late into the night about risk, fear, and living authentically. One of them, a guy named Chin from San Francisco, asked what I did for a living. When I told him I was a stuntman, his eyes lit up. "That explains the fearlessness," he said. "Most people wouldn't just take off like you did." But I corrected him. "It's not fearlessness. I'm terrified half the time. Terrified of being alone forever. Terrified of trusting someone again and getting hurt. Terrified that maybe Jennifer was right, that maybe I was never enough. But I learned something in my job: you can be terrified and still jump. Fear doesn't have to stop you." That became my mantra as I continued south. Through Canada again into Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. I was terrified and jumping anyway. Terrified of my uncertain future and embracing it anyway. Terrified of being alone and choosing it anyway. In Colorado, I did something I hadn't done since leaving Scottsdale. I took a stunt job. Just a small one, a local film production that needed someone to jump off a building. It felt good to be back in the harness, calculating angles, trusting my equipment. But when it was over and they asked if I wanted more work, I declined. "Maybe next time I'm through," I said. Because I realized something: I wasn't ready to go back to normal yet. Maybe I never would be. Maybe this traveling life was my new normal. I spent the winter in Mexico learning Spanish, surfing, healing. I met an older couple, Tom and Linda, who'd been traveling in their RV for 20 years. They'd sold everything after their kids grew up and never looked back. "Don't you miss having a home?" I asked them one night as we watched the sunset over the Pacific. Tom laughed. Son, home isn't a place. It's a feeling. We're home every night when we park this RV. We're home every morning when we wake up together. We're home right now watching this sunset with you. Jennifer took your house, but she couldn't take your home, because home is something you carry inside yourself. That hit me hard. I'd been mourning the loss of my apartment, my marriage, my stable life. But I'd never actually lost my home. I'd lost a building. I'd lost a relationship. But home, the feeling of belonging, of peace, of being exactly where I needed to be, that was still with me. It was with me in the Canadian Rockies. It was with me on the Alaskan coast. It was with me here in Mexico. Jennifer hadn't taken my home. She just revealed that the building in Scottsdale had never been one. As spring approached, I started planning the next phase. Europe was calling. I'd ship my SUV to Spain, drive through Portugal, France, Italy. Maybe venture into Eastern Europe. Maybe down to Morocco. The world was open and I had the time and resources to explore it. But first I decided to make one stop. Back to Scottsdale. Not to see Jennifer, I had no interest in that. But to see Marcus, to thank him properly. To visit Mrs. Patterson at her flower shop and apologize if I'd caused her pain. To close that chapter completely before opening the next one. When I drove back into Scottsdale, it felt surreal. The streets were the same, but I was completely different. I felt like a ghost visiting my own past life. I drove by the apartment building where Jennifer and I had lived. New people in our old unit now. A different car in the parking spot. Life had moved on without me. I met Marcus for lunch. He barely recognized me. I'd lost weight, gained muscle from all the hiking and climbing. My skin was darker from months in the sun. My hair was longer, wilder. But more than the physical changes, something in my eyes was different. You look happy, Marcus said, surprised. I am, I replied. And I meant it. He told me the full story of Jennifer's downfall. How she tried to restart her flower business in Tucson but couldn't compete. How Michelle had publicly blamed her for ruining her reputation too. How Howard had rubbed his new engagement in both their faces by having his engagement party at a venue where Jennifer was working retail, arranging flowers for someone else's happiness. That's rough, I said. And I meant that too. I didn't wish Jennifer well, but I didn't wish her misery either. I just wished her nothing. She was nothing to me now. Marcus asked the question I knew was coming. Any regrets? I thought about it honestly. Did I regret the 15 years with Jennifer? The time that now felt wasted? The trust that had been broken? The life I'd built that had crumbled? No, I finally said. Because all of that led me here. To this freedom, this journey, this new version of myself. If Jennifer had been faithful, I'd still be in that apartment, still putting off my dreams, still living a half-life. She did me a favor even if she didn't mean to. She forced me to jump when I would have stood on that ledge forever, too scared to leap. Marcus raised his beer. To jumping. To jumping, I echoed. The next day, I visited Mrs. Patterson. She insisted on making me tea, showing me pictures of her grandchildren, telling me about the new florist who was renting the space. A young man with fresh ideas and, apparently, a faithful wife. I hope I didn't cause you too much trouble, I said. She shook her head firmly. You showed me the truth. I'm grateful for that. Better to know than to live in ignorance. She paused, then added, Have you forgiven her? The question surprised me. I don't know, I admitted. I don't think about her enough to forgive or not forgive. Is that worse? Mrs. Patterson smiled. That's not worse. That's healing. Forgiveness isn't always this grand gesture. Sometimes it's just letting go, moving on, living well. Sounds like you're doing all three. I left Scottsdale the next morning. No drama, no final confrontation with Jennifer, no closure scene. Because I didn't need it. The closure was in every mile I'd driven, every mountain I'd climbed, every sunrise I'd watched. The closure was in my peace, my happiness, my freedom. As I drove toward the border, heading back to Mexico before shipping to Europe, I realized something profound. Jennifer hadn't destroyed me. She'd demolished a version of me that needed to be demolished. The Hank who lived in fear, who postponed dreams, who trusted without question, he needed to die. And from his ashes, this new Hank had emerged. Stronger, wiser, free. Was I better off without Jennifer? Absolutely. But more importantly, I was better with myself. And that made all the difference. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.